Hey guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In this video, we are bringing back the Forgotten Items series. It's been about 3 months since the last episode, and this is going to be episode 8. Now, if you guys are new or you have not seen this series before, basically I choose anywhere between 4 to 5 items, which I have kind of deemed forgotten. Basically, they're just not really talked about anymore, or they can easily slip under the rug if you occasionally restock them and you haven't in a while, and just things that are worth selling that you might not be at the current moment. Now, as you guys know, I try my best to not repeat anything unless it's been a very long time since I've talked about it, to make sure that all episodes are worth watching. So of course, feel free to go back and find that playlist on my channel if you want more episodes like this. But for this 8th episode of Forgotten Items, we're going to be strictly focusing on BfA. Of course, I will explain why each item is good and, how my sales are doing. I'll show you my sales. So hopefully this video can help you get into a little bit more markets to help diversify your gold. And without further ado, here we go. So the first item we're going to be talking about is from Inscription, and these are the compendiums. Now, compendiums, if you guys are not familiar, this is the Inscription trinket. So if you guys are current content players and you really only have experience with Shadowlands, these compendiums can be thought of like the Darkmoon deck trinkets. Now, you actually just craft these. These are not crafted like Darkmoon decks. However, they were the best trinkets in BfA. Now, the reason why these are still selling is because these are really good trinkets for characters that are leveling. So if you're somebody who doesn't really use heirlooms or you're using guides to level, a lot of the leveling guides will actually say that you should buy compendiums for whichever reason, and that is why these are getting a lot of sales. Now, the best thing about this is that the BfA herbs are pretty cheap, which allows you to get enough ink for these compendiums. They are not very expensive at all, and I can sell them at a few thousand gold apiece. If I'm lucky, I can sell them upwards to the 8 to 10k range, but normally they're falling around the 3 to 5k range, which is still really good. Now, of course, the amount you sell is going to depend on your server, but I highly recommend, especially if you do have a scribe that is learned in BfA, it's such an easy item to craft. I highly recommend at least having one of each type compendium on the auction house, and hopefully you'll bring in some extra gold. Moving on, we have Uncanny Gear. Now, this is more of a broader topic, and it's a little bit harder to get. Now, the thing about Uncanny Gear that makes it a little bit more difficult is to unlock the high-end ranks, because BfA has the rank system similar to Legion. You actually have to buy the recipes via Marks of Honor, which sadly means that you have to do PvP. Now, of course, since marks are bind on account, if you are already a PvP player, or you have a character that can do PvP or just has a ton of marks, then, it's not that big of a deal. Also, if you are still able to make profit with the basic rank of the gear, which the Uncanny Gear is just the high-end gear for leatherworking, blacksmithing, and tailoring, then, it might be worth it to you. However, if you're looking at it, if you have any of those armor professions learned for BfA, and you're looking at the Uncanny Gear and you're like, wow, this is so unprofitable, it's probably because the other sellers have the rank 3. So of course, this does take a little bit more effort. However, whenever Comp Stomp comes up and you can do the, technically PvP, but it's against bots, then that can help you get a ton of Marks of Honor. But personally, I only have the tailoring set. I do not have the blacksmithing or the leatherworking sets, and as you can see, I will show my, sales on screen. The reason why this still sells is for transmog reasons. So it is a unique set of armor, and so every once in a while, people will pick it up for transmog. Of course, it does not sell super fast. It's probably the slowest on the list, but if you have it learned, you were active in BfA, there's a good chance that you have this learned, and it's probably just sitting in your Learn tab and you haven't crafted it in a while, and it might be worth it to give it a shot. Now, moving on, I know I have talked about this one before, but I did want to bring it up because this is the BfA special, and just because I believe I haven't talked about it in quite a while. But next up, we have the embroidered and the normal version of the deep sea bags. Now, the reason I'm talking about these is that they are truly great sellers, and yes, before you guys are like, why in the world, gold making is about supplying the item to the customer and not questioning it. But in real terms, the reason why people buy this item, even though specifically the deep sea bag is the same thing as the shrouded cloth bag, which a lot of people are selling for like the 150 gold mark or cheaper, while deep sea bags are going for 200 to 300 to even 500 gold on some servers. It is just people buy what they are most comfortable with. So if you're somebody who played a ton in BfA, you made a lot of alts in BfA, your routine was creating a new character, buying yourself a few deep sea bags, you're going to stick to that routine until you break that habit. So somebody in the back of their mind might actually know that the shrouded cloth bags are the same, but it is just routine built into them to buy the cheaper. I know myself, until the longest time, every single time I created an alt, I would buy the 16 slot netherweave bags that were like, 20 gold or cheaper a piece. And there was really no reason for me to do that because there was so much better value. I could buy, deep sea bags, for example, or something, and get double the bag space for not that much. However, that was just my routine, and I kind of stuck with it. Same reason why people buy Hexweave or literally any old world bag that is just, of course, doesn't have any bonus stats to it. But, people have their routine, and as a seller, you don't question it, and you just put those bags on the auction house. So these both bags are super good. If you're like me on my server, every once in a while, somebody will come along and drop a ton of deep sea satin for super, super cheap. I believe on my server, which is a medium pop, deep sea satin averages around 20 to 25 gold a piece, which is very, very expensive. But, a few months ago, somebody dropped like 5,000 to 10,000 deep sea satin for 3 gold a piece. They either had it shared in a bank that they forgot about, in a guild bank, or maybe it was a bot who was dropping supplies, but either way, I picked it all up, and I've still been using it to craft it to this day. Deep sea bags, I sell them, daily. Somebody comes around, buys a whole set, and it's a great thing to sell. Now, the embroidered version is a little bit harder to do because it does require that BOP item, the title cores, which you get from running the dungeons of BfA. But the reason why I did want to put this on this list is that a lot of Discord members, personally, I don't sell this item because I can't be bothered to go run, mythic dungeons or old BfA dungeons, but a ton of people in my server have said that this sells super, super well, and they had leftover title cores that they didn't realize, or, they just like running the old dungeons, whether that's for transmog, some extra gold, whatever the reason is. If you have it or you're willing to run the dungeons, great item to sell, highly worth it. Currently, they're selling for like 20k plus on my server, and they have a very high region average. Moving on, we now have Inscription again. Now, these next 2/technically 3 items are going to sound pretty familiar to you. And that is, if you're doing Mage Tower stuff, this is recommended on the list due to the Mage Tower. So if you watched any previous Mage Tower content of myself or somebody else, or you've done your own research, you probably are already selling these items. But more specifically, the inscription item that we have on the list is the War Scrolls. Now, there are 3 versions of these War Scrolls. There is the Intellect, Fortitude, and Battle Shout. And they all, they cost the same exact thing to craft. There's just 3 different versions which give 3 different stat bonuses. And to just let you know, if you guys are not up to date with the current Mage Tower, it is now permanent in the game, which means that over time we're going to get a lot more sales because people can do it at any time, but that also means that we're going to get less sales, in a short period of time. So what this means is if you guys did that first Mage Tower rush, you probably made a few million within a few days or week, or, the week it was live, but now, you might not get a sale until, every 2 weeks or something like that. However, over time, it will definitely add up. So this is a BfA item, super easy to make, requires the cheapest ink, just requires simple crimson ink, which is so easy to get with the cheap BfA herbs. Craft some up, 20 each, throw them on the auction house, restock them whenever they sell. Great item to have to diversify your stock. Then lastly, we have jewelry crafting. Now, in previous Mage Tower videos, I have talked about these items, so yet again, this won't be very surprising to y'all if you have seen those videos, but also, I will say it again here, this is probably my favorite Mage Tower item, / items, technically it's 2 different items, that I have been selling so far. They have been doing super well on my server. I'll make sure to show you screenshots of them, but these are probably my favorite items, and this is the Kraken's Eye and the Leviathan's Eye. Now these are both jewelry crafting, and the Kraken's Eye is from the pre-8.3 BfA, so before Nazjatar and all of that. And then the Leviathan's Eye is from post 8.3 with the Nazjatar update from BfA. So depending on how leveled up your jewel crafting is, you can either craft one of these or both of these. Now, how to truly make profit with these are 2 different ways. The way that I was luckily able to do, somebody dumped a ton of the cheap uncut versions on the auction house for like 5 to 10 gold to 20 gold. I think the highest I paid maybe was 50 gold each for these uncut versions. Then all you had to do was buy that, and then you could turn that simple uncut version into a cut version and triple your gold. I've been selling these for, 200 to 400 gold a piece, depending on the cut, and, it costed me 10 to 50 gold to craft. Another great way is if the uncut versions are all bought out, or there's just none on the auction house, you can look for cheap ore. Now, the Leviathan's Eye is a little bit harder to get, as you can only get it from Osmanite, and some people do like to keep that price high, kind of like Zenithid, if you guys are familiar with that. But if you can buy some cheap Osmanite, that is perfect. The Kraken's Eye, you have a little bit more of a choice. You have Monolite ore and the Storm Silver ore, which might be a little bit expensive on your server. Those are used for the mounts from BfA, so sometimes those prices can stay high, but it can also come from platinum ore. And from my experience on my server, platinum ore has been pretty cheap. Some people neglect it. Some people have posted platinum ore for, 99 silver, less than a gold each. Buy a few thousand, buy a few hundred, prospect it, and there I go. I have a ton of cheap Kraken's Eye, and then you can just vendor the rest of the random gems that you get. So, by far, these are the best performing and probably the simplest on this list. Of course, you do have to actually level up jewelry crafting, but this goes with everything. You're going to have to level up everything to craft these items. That's the one downside with Old World. It can be expensive to level, but you have a ton more options. But those are my suggestions for these forgotten items. All of these have been performing super well for me and have been adding to my daily gold. Every once in a while I get a huge sale, and that's 20 to 50k that I've just gotten from these items per day. So I highly recommend looking into it. Keep in mind it is Old World, so it's going to sell slower than your standard Shadowlands items. So if you have no experience with Old World at all, you will have to just note that it is a slower seller, but it's just a great thing to add to diversify your stock. So hopefully you can at least go and learn and craft one of these, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to like or subscribe if you want to see more content, and as always, have a good day.